what, everybody? Welcome back to beers.bros.biz. I keep on getting the three wrong. It's been a little bit since we got a video put up. We've This is the fifth week for our business bros, and we've missed week 3 and 4. So I'll be uploading these two videos this week, but it was about time we got back on track. A lot to catch up on. For recap, last time I was on the road headed to California, I was around Arizona for my wedding weekend. Roy was at his grandma's house, also kind of waiting for his flight out to California for the wedding. And our two business bros were, 2 weeks in and neck deep in case studies. And I think that's the last kind of discussion we had was we agreed that Alvin was not good at case studies. Uh, so
That was not good at reading.
That was Roy's conclusion. Yeah.
Okay, that was one. Yeah, that was one theory.
Yeah.
So we'll follow up and see how that's going. For me, I got married. By any means, there was a lot of stuff going on. Due to a forest fire, my event got canceled at our venue, so we had to do what we could and put something together at my now wife's house. And still had a good time. So it was good catching up with the boys. We were planning on having the Beers Bros Biz meeting right the day of the wedding, but because of the fire as well, we were too busy evacuating, so didn't go as planned. Nonetheless, still we got together and enjoyed our company. So Roy was there from his grandma's, and then the two guys too also were there that Sunday. But now following up, Alvin, Sharoon, case studies, where are we at now? Reading them, processing them, like how many are you going through? Are they getting easier? Are they getting harder because now you think about them more? What's going on?
Yeah, I'll go first. I think I'm getting better at them to an extent where I'm not reading and comprehending every single word that the case study has. I'm kind of going through them and seeing what the relevant information is, and I'm better at picking out like what I think is important, highlighting it, and kind of moving on quicker. I think to that extent, I am doing better. We're still doing 3 a day, 4 days a week. Some cases are longer than others, but I think overall we're getting more comfortable in the casing.
I have a question. So
Sure.
do you
Yeah.
find that the case studies are trying to make themselves like long, or are there's like extra fluff information and you're like, this could have just been a bullet point, or why are they so long and why are you going out? How much are you really skip reading and you're saying, oh, this is useless, okay, this is information?
Yeah, good question. So ultimately, a case is a story. I mean, if they give you all the cold hard facts and they don't give you the beginning and the end, it's just kind of it doesn't mean anything. So it gives you background, maybe a little background of the history of the company, of the person, the protagonist, and it doesn't give you a conclusion. It kind of gives you where they're stuck at or what their next challenge is. But it does have some fluff, so to speak. But in the eyes of the case, it's necessary information to kind of round out the story.
Okay.
Yeah.
I want to jump in there.
Yeah, go ahead.
Talk about, so essentially the case is written for a case purpose. So I know it seems kind of silly to say that, but the reason they wrote that case was not for this particular class in mind. They wrote that case as a general case. Any professor can pick that case up and try and find elements that are applicable to that particular topic in class. For example, a case that I read for leading people, which talks about how a CEO or a leader was leading an entire organization, his plans, how he was talking to his people, had a lot of information about their profits, had a lot of information about their operating costs and stuff like that, which was not important to that particular case. But that case could have been used for my econ class as well, where we would have focused on the whole operating and profit loss part of it.
Very true.
That makes sense. Where they're not, it's not a textbook problem specifically made for your class. It's a business firm's a proposition to a company, and then it might have a lot of stuff you don't need. So, but that's good, right? You have to be able to determine what's important and what are you gonna spend your time on as you look through these. But that's cool. Sharoon, your case study week, or kind of, you said your school doesn't do as many, but
Right.
how's that progressed in your on your side?
So we don't do as many cases as Alvin's school does. We have sort of regular class, so to speak. So we have some cases that explain stuff. So every week I'll have at least two cases for a class, but we have normal teaching and then we have midterms. So I went through two midterms already. I have one today that I'm going to take after. Um, and it's essentially pretty standard school type. Uh, and it's been busy in the sense that the way we cover a lot of topics in business school, they sort of expect you to know or be familiar with a lot of these things, which you might not be. So the speed at which they're covering topics is pretty fast. So you have to catch up. Especially as an engineer, I have not touched economics since I
Mhm.
was in middle school. So that was something that I was
So
struggling a little
you
bit with.
took their intro, right? Like the weeks leading up to it, there were some courses that try to prepare you, give you base um, terms and whatnot, right? How was
Yeah,
that helpful, or were you like, that's I needed, was it was well, you wanted more, or more would have been helpful?
it was, and there's definitely does help. And once you get your feet wet, you try to learn more about it. But it was still not as in depth as I would have liked because the mood is kind of light. No one's worried about testing or anything, so people are joking, chatting.
Yeah.
Um,
So would
but
you recommend like someone about to start at your school next, well, round or whatever? Would you tell them, hey, like you need to like YouTube courses on economics like on your own, because this is like, if you want to be better prepared. Um,
it depends completely because most of my classmates are either CPAs or econ majors or they have experience. So for them, it was not as much as of a struggle. And on the flip side, the stats class that I'm taking, I feel I'm a lot well prepared compared to my classmates because they would ask some questions that were very elementary. But
okay.
to them, they have not taken, like one of the guys was asking a simple thing about like what's logarithm
Mm,
because he has not seen it for 12 years
right.
and we've been using it for a long time.
Yeah, I'll jump in there. I think Sharon, correct me if I'm wrong, but this is applies to this quarter for you, right? Where you're doing these set of classes and you might feel this way about a particular class this quarter, but next quarter where Sharon might be doing an operations class, like I would be, he might be more experienced because Cummins is very operations heavy, right? So where he might like some expertise here, he might have extra next quarter. I think aggregate, we all come out the same, or we come in the same and we come out better off, So it's hard to kind of plan ahead. They do the best to prime you, but at the end of the day, it's hard to tell where you might be lacking that gap.
Okay.
Is that fair,
I think
Sharon?
Yeah, I agree.
you probably whenever you come up with a term or like a subject that you don't know, you probably go home and like, or stay home and just kind of do some research on it to understand it, right? Like it's not like learning calculus. It's kind of just try to be familiar with what they're talking about, right?
Yeah, there are a few resources, right? So we have tutoring if you really need it. I think the biggest thing that we lean on is we have learning teams that we talked about the first couple of weeks where we meet four nights a week with people in your entire year class, and concepts that you might be strong on, your teammates may not be, and vice versa, and you kind of leverage each other. And then whatever you learn in a learning team, you reinforce that in your classroom environment, and you still have further questions from that, and teachers are pretty open about you asking a question, you get it clarified, you still have more questions, go to office hours, go to tutoring. There are plenty of opportunities, even Google if you have to. So I think if you make the effort, you will come away with understanding what you need to do.
Nice. So that was that's good. I mean, it's good info. I mean, I guess I just don't realize being strictly engineer when you go to trying to learn something, from like economics. I mean, I took economics in high school. I didn't take anything after that. So I guess, yeah, a lot of it would be new to me. Aside from the research or whatever, the base class that they gave us.
Yeah, with all that to say, Israel, like when you give a case, there are like 100 different ways of approaching it, and the classes don't focus on a specific way. It gives you a kind of broad stroke of what you should be thinking about, right? Like they give, like, so I think a lot of folks get bogged down of, oh, I did my way wrong, and a lot of they preface the class by saying, don't go back and change your sheet, let's work on it together as a class and just focus on the overarching message.
Nice.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, it looks like you guys are getting way more comfortable with the flow of the class, terms. The more you see these, I don't know how the structure of these case studies is, or does it follow a similar format where it like goes through an intro, then it goes to like details, and then it goes through like you said they don't really conclude anything. They kind of leave it as, and this is where we're at. Are they all the same? Are they all very similar in structure?
Sure, you want to go first?
Yeah, so for the cases that, it depends on my class. For leading people, the professor will take half the class, she'll teach a concept, and then the second half of the class, it's an entire class input, and we discuss the whole case.
Give me a concept. Give me kind of just what last one you remember, something simple. I don't know.
So for example, there was a case where the CEO was focused on his people. That was his entire MO. He was to a point where he would not make a lot of the decisions. He would let his team make a lot of decisions. If someone said, hey, we want to launch a new product, he would not say yes directly. He would ask his people, we have this proposition, what would you guys do? Is it possible? Is it feasible? What new equipment you would need? All these questions were posed to his team, and his team would come up with the answer. So the case was talking about people-centered management, essentially. So after we read this case, there was a question that came up where these guys had to take on a whole new project that would increase their revenue by more than 75%. I'm making numbers up. And was it a good choice for the CEO to make at that point or not? And how he should have approached the problem, and how he actually did approach the problem that we discussed towards the end. But we spend the entire time talking about, okay, what should he talk about this? Who should he talk to about this? And we go through this entire step-by-step process of the steps that the CEO would have taken.
So the term, the subject you said was people-centered management or people-centered leadership, or I guess something.
People-centered management.
Nice. Cool. How'd that work out for that company in the end, letting his teams do his job?
I think they went from being a mom and pop shop to like a $350 million company. Nice. In 10 years. So I think they did well.
Good. Well, the next thing I wanted to bring up was, so we're at week 5 and you were saying you're doing midterms, and it is college. So how's is this now halfway through?
Very good question, Israel. Actually, I have my finals next week.
So yeah, I was looking at it. I was like, okay, week 5. And then I knew, Alvin, you mentioned you guys are or you're not taking classes after November, or you're doing all remote, or what was that?
So what's happening is we started the right time, I think last week of August, and we have quarter systems, so it's 6 or 7 weeks. So we're starting week six now, and then week 7 we have our finals. What's happening is instead of having a week of fall break, we get that completely removed, and we're slamming the quarters together, and we end up being done like right after Thanksgiving, and finals will be after Thanksgiving.
Okay, so you have a break for like a month and a half.
Well, it's not a break. I mean, yeah, we don't have classes, but keep in mind that applications are due December for internships. You have to interview prep, and then interviews are like early January, like after New Year's, right? So all of December you're busy prepping for interviews. Yep, exactly.
So it's probably good that they give you that time off to not have classes or classwork, but you're just hustling, grinding, perfecting your resume, interview
right.
skills.
Well, I'm glad you brought the resume. Resume is now like, so this past Friday, 2 days ago, we actually had to get it done and get it the best we can to get it submitted to our section rep for review, right? And actually by next Friday, it's going to go into our resume book. So resume is now, I think that's step number one. And then you work on your elevator pitch. And then if you're going to consulting, you case prep and all that stuff. And then you actually interview early Jan. And a lot of company events are actually happening right now. So last week was super busy with all these company info sessions. And with consulting, you have to do coffee chats, you do a lot of networking, so on and so forth.
You guys have said this term coffee chats. I mean,
yep.
That you guys aren't going to a coffee shop, but is this like what is it?
No, it's a colloquial term for just having 30 minutes on the calendar just to talk about the company, about their work, so on and so forth. It's called coffee chat, but in reality, it's just a one-on-one.
That's what
right?
That's what I figured, but instead of saying I have a Zoom call with one, like. But
it's a fair question.
And then is that something that you can reach out to somebody and say, hey, are you good for a coffee chat, or do they need to be specific on?
Fantastic question. It really depends on who you're talking to. So some companies have office hours, but sometimes that's synonymous with coffee chats. I think they're not, right? Office hours are kind of with like the company's HR. If you have any logistical questions, you go to the office hours. And then coffee chats, you reach out to alumni or company employees via LinkedIn, by alumni database, via contacts that you have made, and kind of find out about, growing your network, find out about their job, find out about what they do, the day-to-day, and growth development opportunities in the company, so on and so forth. See if you can fit, your culture fits with theirs, with their company's culture, so on and so forth. Yeah.
Sharoon, are you having the same kind of setup where you are taking or having to apply for internships by December and trying to get all that sorted as well right now?
Yeah, similar timelines. We have Career Week coming up next week, where whatever your interests are, there's going to be some sort of resource that helps you out. There's going to be companies that come and talk to you. We do coffee chats as well, and it's a term that you use. Everyone knows it's basically 30 minutes of chatting about whatever. If you remember last time I said I had to email, they had me email some person live in class to talk about connecting. They gave us resources. They gave us Excel sheets with where every past student has had an internship in the last 3 years. They also gave us the following week all the evening and weekend MBA contacts who are currently in companies working, to reach out and talk to them about things.
What was the coolest out of that Excel sheet? Who's got the dang, they went to work for blah, blah?
It's an entire spectrum. You can think about companies that you haven't heard of, like this company that has 3 employees and one of them was the intern. And then there's people who work for Apple, Google, and
I figured those would be pretty basic, standard, like kind of sought after. But what about hey, this guy went to work for, I don't know, Ferrari, or he went to work for, I don't know, just something kind of all the space and battery development. I'm assuming, yes, those will get interested. Those are, but any cool ones?
I think the cool ones are mostly startups. Like the startups are really cool. Like there's some people who work for those robots that deliver food to people. I don't know if you've seen those around in San Francisco.
Drone?
There are people,
they're like little.
It's a small robot that drives on the street and on the sidewalk. It's like a person, and it'll walk around. It'll wait for stoplights. It'll cross on the crosswalk, and it'll bring the food to your door.
No, I didn't get a chance to see them. Maybe next time we visit.
It's basically a box that's like 1.5 feet by 1 feet by 1.5 feet with wheels.
Nice. Dude,
so the one caveat there, I think cool is very subjective, right? Somebody who wants to work in consulting, cool would be McKinsey or cool would be Deloitte. So I think Sharoon's idea of cool and I think I resonate with him to some extent, like technology and working on a startup that brings product to market. I think it's in the eye of the beholder.
I
So
guess the term I said cool, but I meant like, was there any like the ones that you look, you're scrolling through, right? These, like you said, sheets and sheets of Excels, and you're like, oh dang, that one was
yeah,
cool.
I mean, like for me, like what's cool is like working for Waymo or some small like some smaller, less known company, but at the same time doing some really cutting edge. But for them, that's my interest. At the end of the day, some people love working for investment banks. For them would be working at Deutsche Bank or whatever, not Lehman Brothers, obviously,
Goldman
uh,
Sachs.
Goldman Sachs, and,
Mm.
and and for them that would be cool. So it really, that's the world's your oyster. So it's so hard to say that is cool and that's not cool.
I have, and so kind of continuing on this subject. So are these all internships based in the U.S.? I'm assuming internships before COVID were, hey, you're going to come and like work, be in our office for so and so long. Similarly, we just had to do recruiting for my company, for our company, for Florida, and that was one of the questions that came up. Hey, are you guys going to have us come in? What's that looking like? And the only answer we gave right now was, all of our employees are working remotely for this so long. Depending on how things pan out and depending on the position that you're in, that you may be asked to come and be in person. Are you guys expecting that your internships will be remote, or what's that looking like?
You asked two questions there. One was like a lot of it in the US and one of it is remote. So I'll answer your first question. I think it's US and international depending on what you want to do.
Hmm.
Like a lot of consulting firms have offices around the world, so they have different resources to choose for each, right? So that a lot of the jobs are in US based, but there are international opportunities. But to your second question, I think it's almost less relevant what we're going to do like summer and more relevant how are we recruiting this fall, and whether we can get a job first. I think whether we get a job is more important to us, but and less so where we're going to be physically located. So we haven't even asked that question because nobody knows.
Right. So right now it's just,
Like,
hey, getting that. Yes, we'll have you. We'll figure that out later.
right.
Okay.
You still might have a home office, right? So you might be working for, let's use McKinsey, Chicago, right? But you might be based in Virginia, right? You
Mm-hmm.
may not physically make the move, but you still might be tied to a home office.
Yeah, and that's I think you just so broad in general. Like in any new position that anyone works for, unless you're doing something with your hands, I mean, just being able to do this virtually and have a meeting with three people in different time zones and different states, it's
Yeah.
we're making all that really really easy now. So I think the whole structure of working for a company where you're not basically there is changing in all levels,
Yeah.
schooling, work, anything.
I think there are some pros to Zoom for sure, and I've had some good experiences in classroom. But I was going to bring this up during our chat today. I felt in the last few weeks after we met in person in your wedding, Israel, that like each week had its own theme, and I wanted to share with you guys. So I wrote a couple of notes here. Week 3, I felt like I was not connecting with my classmates. Right, with the Zoom environment, it was so tough to make those deep connections. And then week 4, I felt like I wasn't providing quality insight to my classmates, right? Like I was just like, man, my classmates have such cool experiences, like, why am I not able to bring those kind of like learnings from my industry experience? Like, so it just, I don't know if it was a combination of fatigue or just like being with, there's no feedback mechanism when you're staring at your 4 walls at home, like not having that personal interaction with your classmates. I think it's a mix of all of those things. But since then I've come over the hump, right? I think I've gotten more used to the curriculum more. I think we've hit our stride as a section. I think overall, I'm feeling a lot better than I did maybe a couple weeks ago.
It comes in waves, man, and that's just even for work too. There's weeks that I'm like, oh man, I was super productive, this whole work, I could do this for forever. But then there's other weeks I'm like, God, like just dragging, like I don't like.
Yeah.
Get up and just there's no, you get kind of claustrophobic, and then it's it's definitely, I think the future holds a mixture of both, because everyone's gonna, be happy with work, not having to commute, being in their home, all this, but also you need that
Yeah.
social as well.
And just for full disclosure, this week's theme was, oh shit, am I going to get a job? And because it's just like really depends on what the top thing on your mind is for that week, and it just kind of amplifies itself.
Yeah, yeah.
So it's
No, that's
just
good. I,
really
I,
cool.
I appreciate you kind of being able to square off or focus your feelings or your experience in one kind of subject. Not connecting, not quality. Now it's jobs, stress, it's
Yeah.
jobs, looking for jobs. So we'll see what next week is. After, well, you
I
said
know. I have a great psychic, and I think next week is, oh shit, am I going to do well in my finals?
that's what I was gonna say. Oh, did I pass? Oh, so yours are not till when?
So next week is finals. I had a quiz last week. It was just marketing. It was 5 questions, 30 minutes take home quiz. It wasn't bad. Next week will be finals. I think it's open book, take home, and all that stuff. So we'll see how that goes.
Nice.
Yep.
I have, let's see, what we talked about kind of the layout, the rest of the semester going. And then right now, it looks like you guys are going to be on top of classes, are going to be working on your resume, interview skills, elevator pitch, and then all your coffee chats. So we have 10 minutes, so we'll keep on talking about other stuff then. But next week, I think we'll focus on, wanting to hear you guys' elevator speech, and then maybe like, seeing what your resume, how you see it changed from what you applied to, the school to what it is now. It's just some tips and tricks that you've learned. Just some of that would be, we'll get into it next week, so we spend
Yeah.
a lot of time, because I feel like we'll be able to dig a lot into that.
I want to comment about Zoom, and I forgot to mention it earlier. I think there are some pros and cons about Zoom. Obviously, I think a couple pros that I've seen, especially having a young one at home. One, I'm able to like go see her between classes, which has been really nice. And the other thing with this social distancing, the FOMO about social events has dropped dramatically because no one else is having fun. Selfishly, like I don't have to worry about like not like missing out. So I think in the grand scheme of things, it kind of levels itself out. I just wanted to throw that out there and hear what Sharoon's experience is.
I agree. I think last week our county downgraded the level, seriousness level of COVID from, I don't know, it went from purple to red. It just meant that they were going to make some changes to how people were going to interact. So some of my classmates are having socially distant hangouts in your backyards or the park. So there are some social events happening. But I just wanted to echo what Alvin said about the internships. They did those this summer. Almost everyone that interned this summer did it remote, no matter where you were. You could be in San Francisco or your home country. People were doing remote internships. And I think that's going to be an option moving forward. Whether COVID's there or not, one of the things that is going to happen is there's going to be an option for remote internships.
I think there's some benefits to both, right? One is that you don't have to pay double rent, and the con is you won't get to see that new environment. So for me, if I'm trying to pivot to California, and there's an opportunity to go out there for the summer, you bet I'm going to take it, right? I don't mind spending that money, but I want to go see where my future home might be, because it gives you an opportunity to see if it's truly meant for you, right?
Yeah,
So of course,
that's a good point. I think since we all worked at, we all worked at Cummins, right? You're all coming from, Alvin, you were familiar with Indiana already. Haven't gone to Purdue, but for someone like Sharoon and I, Sharoon, you didn't intern before, right? You just kind of got a job. Same. It was going from Gainesville to this. It was, if I would have needed to do it just remote, where they're like, hey, for the first year, you're live it. I would have continued probably living in Gainesville and then worked remote. I definitely wouldn't have understood the meaning of a small town and just how different it is from everything. And I mean, for me, it was an okay transition. I didn't have a problem, but some people that don't really like this area at all. They just know that they're here for like a little bit and then they're looking for something else. So yeah, that is completely necessary, and that's part of the internship experience is seeing how you're going to fit into that culture, location, climate too. I mean, some people just
Yep.
hate having to wear winter clothes. They don't like the snow. They just want to be warm. Um, so
I think knowing what I know now, I wish I would have come to Virginia earlier rather than just come in the week before orientation. I think the connections, a lot of people showed up in June, July, and built those connections that happened before school. And I think they are farther along in their relationship building than I have. I think for that very purpose, I would go to California, even if it was remote, just to build those connections outside of work. At least I'll try to.
yeah, no. And then so we have 5 minutes. It usually kicks me out at 40 minutes, but
Got a note saying it got upgraded to unlimited minutes.
all of them.
I just got a note.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I don't know if I didn't see it, but we'll keep going if it lets us. But tying into the comments Drew made of social events outside of work as safely as possible, I was going to ask if there's been a lot of those, but also related to. So now you guys, the times that we've tried to like chat or like that I'm chatting with your significant others, and I'm FaceTiming them, say hi. You guys are usually pretty tied up. We know not to disturb you guys since you're you're somewhere busy. But how many hours a day, or what's your schedule looking like now that you're kind of in the deep, like in the groove? What's that looking like?
I think the hours doesn't change. It's the mental toll decreases a little. Sharun, I don't know if you have better context, but I think that it's just I'm more comfortable with it. So I'm able to like worry less about what I didn't get done and just be comfortable with what I have gotten done. What do you think, Sharun?
For me, it depended week to week. Whenever we have some difficult cases, I've spent more time researching them, working on them. And this week and last week, I had a couple of midterms, so I spent a whole lot of time. I was studying almost like 6 to 8 hours a day.
But so now time wise, I guess I'm more specifically asking. I'm waking up. I have my first class at so and so, but I'm up an hour before to get ready, make some breakfast, and go. And then I take I have a quick bite, and then I get right back to it. Or is it a little bit more in blocks where you're able to kind of jump in and out, similar to kind of how college was for me? It was I had a learning early class, then I'd have 3-4 hours in between, and then I'd go and kind of take another one. What's the routine looking like?
I'll go first. Wake up, depends on how much reading I did not get done the previous day. I'd wake up at 7 or so. If I had to do more reading, I'd wake up earlier at 6. And then I'd get my reading done, jump in the shower, make coffee, have a slice of toast, get right to it at 8 or 8:10, and do 3 classes. And between classes, there was like a 20 or 30-minute break. We do this thing called First Coffee, where we would meet up with our classmates virtually and just kind of chit chat outside of kind of like your corridor classroom chats, whatever.
Mm.
And then in between like other classes, we either stay back and ask questions of our professor, or I just go hang out with the girls for a couple minutes, and then that brings me to like 2 p.m. right? I have lunch. Oh, like I mentioned, Darden provides like this food scholarship, so they pay for your food, and we go out there. I go on campus, grab the food, and have it with my classmates, socially distant, and then I come back.
Cool.
Yep. So it's kind of building community that sense.
Yeah. That's awesome.
And then come back, we read cases, prep for the learning team that night. I have dinner if I choose to, and then meet with our learning team from like 7 to 9, right? After 9, I come back, depending on how burnt out I am, either I try to read whatever I've not read or hang out with the girls. So honestly, whatever time I don't spend on class or reading, I hang out with the girls on the weekdays. And then weekends, because we just got upgraded for COVID, there's been a surge in cases. So it used to be 15 people maximum cap. It's now downgraded to 5 people. So we only can meet groups of 5 or smaller. So this past weekend, 4 of us met up and had hot pot, right? Like it was just like that Asian food where you dip into broth and eat it. So it was just a small group in our class. So things like that, we have to be kind of smart about it. Sharun, what's your experience?
It depends on day to day. Like I have Thursdays are extremely busy for me, so I start at 9 my first class, and then I have things nonstop until 9 p.m. Literally get about 30-minute, like 30-minute breaks in between. But every week, every day, I am working on some deliverable for the following day. So there will be a case, or there will be an assignment, or there'll be a problem set. So I have literally a couple hours every day free for myself.
That you have to spend with your boo.
Yeah.
Not even for yourself, right?
There was one opportunity that I had right before that 15 to 5 person limit hit. I went to play soccer once. I gave up reading a case because I was just so burnt out.
Yeah,
and that 40 minutes just changed my day.
Yeah.
It was
Physical
phenomenal.
Share, get your blood pumping.
And I was like, oh man, I've missed this. I was genuinely excited. I was running out the door of how excited I was to go play soccer. And it's just insane, Israel. I don't know how people would do this part-time, this curriculum. That's why they kind of takes longer. B, I'm so thankful I don't have to worry about work.
Yeah.
I'm so thankful,
yeah.
you know? Yeah. And the lack of money doesn't even bother me right now. I was like, I'd not work just so I can have this peace of mind of not worrying about work.
Yeah.
You know.
No, it's a strategy, and I people have different setups where they need to do. You know, they don't have a choice. But if you going full time, whether it's 1 year, 2 year, over part time, I think it is the right move. Like you said, you just get so much more out of it. You're less stressed. You can focus on one thing. You don't have your mind on something else. A designer review coming up, and you still have an exam too. It sucks. A couple of things. We'll wrap up soon, and it looks like it hasn't kicked us out yet. But your comment, Alvin, on corridor chats. I guess that's one thing that's pretty cool. If you have a Zoom meeting for 12:40, and then for class, and then you meet up with everyone joins the lobby, kind of hanging out, chatting 5 minutes before class. That's pretty cool. Like, hey, how's everybody doing? Did you guys read your case study? Oh man, blah blah blah. And then class starts. Yeah. That's something that you definitely miss from going to in-person classes.
Absolutely. And that's where most of the connections are built, right? Exactly. Because you can't even talk in class, but then after you're like, hey, what'd you do this weekend? Oh, no way, I did that too. When do we meet up or something like that? But in this case, like, hey, how's your recruiting? Yeah.
Following up on that, have you guys made closer friends, someone you guys kind of connect with a little more than everybody else, and you're sitting there in class, you're like, oh god, this what's this guy talking about? Are you side messaging them, or there clicks or what?
I'm staring at my friends right now.
But within your classmates, have you found someone that you guys are kind of partnering up with, and they kind of teaming up on some work, or helping each other out, or just kind of chit-chatting during class, or is that a little harder to do?
There are a couple, if I was just chatting with, I'd ask, because I know for each class there are targeted people that I'd go for if I had a question, but almost I try to focus on the instruction, because the chat distracts me. I'm not good for multitasking, right? Yeah. So I just I try not to. I know people do, but I couldn't do it.
It's hard.
Yeah.
You're really trying to soak up everything a professor's saying, and then also have a side thing. You're gonna miss something. Are the lectures recorded, or the Zoom meetings recorded, where you can follow up and see later on what you missed something, you have to step away to the bathroom for 5 minutes?
Okay, those are two different questions. Yes, they are recorded, but it's if it's an absence excuse absence, you can get access to it. But going to the bathroom, it doesn't stop me, because my Bluetooth headphones allows me to go to the bathroom. So that's why I said they're two different questions. I honestly have not used a recording. I don't even know when I'll have the time to view it.
Exactly. Yeah. And then have you, speaking of the kind of working with technology here, is any mix-ups where you're like Mariah's comes in crying, or you lose connection, right? You get frozen, something happens, you forget to press mute and you go to the bathroom.
No mix up there, but I think still related to technology. I put Mariah down for a nap, or I took a nap with Mariah and until like on Saturday, and I had a coffee chat and overslept by 10 minutes. And that guy was not happy. I apologized like 10 times and emailed him after. He's like, I don't recommend you do that next time with people who don't have kids. They may not be so understanding. I'm like,
yeah.
Like, I am genuinely sorry. This doesn't happen.
Well,
I get angry. Yeah.
I understand I think he's doing it for your own good to really kind of drive home,
Yep.
focus and don't do this. But we were recruiting this past week, and you were using the school setup, this Career Fair Plus app, and I could see it's like an appointment, basically a coffee chat with just 10 minutes. I already knew his name, his phone number, his resume. I was ready. 3:10, the interview was supposed to start. I log in 3:09. I'm ready, like to admit him into the lobby. 3:10 comes, 3:12 comes, 3:15. I'm like, okay, hey, I sent him a text. Hey, we had an interview. It started this time. Are you gonna be calling in? And he texts me, oops, I totally forgot. My bad. And then I was like, okay, awesome. I didn't even like, okay, thanks. And then just never disregarded him again. But I was kind of, I laughed internally. I'm like, these are college kids. They're oops. Oh man, I totally forgot. Sorry, man. And then I was like, I understand, but I didn't want to like teach him a lesson. Like, hey, this is irresponsible. What was interesting in that app, it lets you rate the candidates, like Uber drivers. So like, all the recruiters can go in and like say, hey, this was a terrible interview. This was a good one. I didn't feel like, going in and having trash talk, a recruiter for, bashing him on his review. But it was interesting that just some kids just don't take it. They're not as worried about it. They're just like, oops, sorry.
Yeah. My response to him is like, thanks for the feedback. I promise it will never happen to you or anyone else. Like, I didn't want to feel that way. I scrambled, put a sweatshirt on, and like jump on the car. I don't want to feel that way.
Flustered, and you're just like, you're not even ready. But I think it was a lesson learned. Hopefully it wasn't, it wasn't too bad, but hopefully.
Yeah. Well, I've got a follow-up chat with him, right? So he was like gracious enough to like set up another call. I had 20 minutes left in that call, and then he was open to like setting up another one. So good. All hope's not lost,
Good.
I better not be late for the next one.
Drew, any mishaps?
There's one guy.
Cold and you can't hear.
What?
Your AC running too cold, and then you're not able to.
No, there was this guy in the middle of class. The professor gave a problem, and he said, if you have to like ask someone to chat with them on the side to solve this problem, you can do it somewhere for your class. This kid puts his headphones down, picks up a phone, and he's calling some guy, and he just goes, yo, bro, how you doing? Oh, you look like you just got out of bed. Your hair's all messed up. And the professor's trying to tell him, like, we can hear you, but he's got his headphones down, and he's just
no.
Fortunately, everyone else had, like, exited the room, so they couldn't hear what he was saying.
Does the teacher have, like, the power to mute people right away, like, or?
Yeah.
Yes. He has a person who can do it. This was not Zoom. This was, like, the Bark WeConnect. It was, like, a different software.
Yeah.
But that's pretty funny.
Nice. What's up, bro? Hey, yeah, I'm in this boring class right now. Oh, God. Teacher's such a loser. Okay. Well, I won't drag it on too long. Unfortunately, it looks like Roy wasn't able to join us, but we'll catch up with him next week.
Yeah.
Again, so Sharoon, I know you have an exam today, so good luck.
Thanks, Rob.
We'll be asking you how about that next week. And then I'm really interested to get your guys' input on what resumes, what kind of work a resume from like an MBA needs to look like, what adjustments you have. We're all engineers, so we probably have the basic, oh, look at all this technical mumbo jumbo that I did.
Yeah.
I'm senior engineer, technical specialist. Does that matter? And your elevator pitches too, if you guys have them or if you practice them, that'd be interesting to jot down, and then we can look back at it later and laugh at each other.
I think at this time next week, the resume, I mean, I'll be glad to share mine. Like we can just go through it and I can point out what was different and stuff like that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
awesome. And yeah, I'll see if I can work out logistics. Maybe I don't want to like go put them on screen or anything. So actually, yeah, it's a good point. Let's just not put these on screen. Just go through them and just kind of go through some like, this is kind of what I changed. And yeah, we'll see how the rest of midterms go for everyone. I know you guys are busy, so thanks for taking time to chat. We'll catch up with Roy next week, and yeah, good luck, guys.
Thanks,
All right.
man.
See you guys. Bye.
Bye.
See you.